What's up guys, it's your friendly neighborhood dingo, and today I'm going to talk about a story that I honestly couldn't believe what I was reading. This story has got so much evil in it. I have actually been struggling to sort of find out the right words to even describe the whole situation. Now, you might have heard of it, you might have not, but the story is actually coming out of Spain, and it involves a 25-year-old girl called Noelia Castillo Ramos. Now, this is the girl, and she's actually done an interview a few days ago. And before I play this video, just letting you know, she has since passed away, and that's where the story is really getting to. So Noelia, unfortunately, she has had a really hard life. Her family had some financial troubles, and because of that, she was put into state care. Now, while she was in state care, unfortunately, she was, let's just say, assaulted, similar to the grooming gangs in the UK, by a bunch of Muslim men. Now, the incident was so bad, and I believe the authorities just sort of ignored it, similar, once again, to the grooming gangs and many other incidents like that in Europe, to, you know what, because of the perpetrator's religion and who they are really. Noelia here tried to end it all. Unfortunately, it did not work, it was not successful, but it left her permanently paralyzed. She was just completely disabled, and it just did not improve her case at all. So she requested the Spanish government, to just administer euthanasia, and this story just blew up. Let's just quickly listen to what she has to say before we go further and discuss it.
Llamo Noelia Ramos, tengo 25 años y bueno, me quedan 4 días. Básicamente porque el 26 ya me hacen la eutanasia.
¿Has dudado alguna vez de, venga, paro todo el proceso?
No, lo tenía muy claro desde el principio.
Okay, so that was just a bit of her just explaining who she was there. I mean, this story, if you think about it, is, you know, going back to what these countries are doing, is a case of essentially putting it all on the victims of such insane crimes. Like, all the burden is now carried by the victims, and nothing happens to the perpetrators because of who the perpetrators are, and because the entire institution, especially in a place like Spain, has been captured by the Spanish left. What you're seeing are the downstream results to broader society as because of the Red-Green Alliance, essentially, and what their ideas are and what they essentially stand for. There's actually even been video that's come out of how the state actually went into her home where her mother and grandmother lived, and essentially just broke down the door to try and get in and essentially take her into state care. Yeah, you can see, just to get her, like, look at the amount of police that they sent to this house. And you know what, like, a lot has been done. Obviously it all did not work out in the end, but a lot was tried. Like, lawyers went after it, her father, everyone tried a lot, because it seems like the state really isolated this girl from everybody who really cares about her. And I think the state played a big role in where this ended up, because it's clear that they made it seem like to her that there was no hope. There was nobody coming to save her. There's nobody that really cared, because the state didn't do anything about these perpetrators. They essentially really covered it up, because this story only blew up a few days before the end result here. The decision was made, everything was arranged, and just because of how bizarre, just the insanity behind it, was what caused the uproar that we're seeing on the internet right now. And you can see here, right before this happened, her best friend actually tried to go and see her, and the hospital staff and once again the authorities prevented her from doing that.
Mañana podría ser nuestra hija, ¿sabes? ¿Qué quiero decir? Pero un mensaje que la queremos.
Llevo una hora en coche con...
Noelia, a lo mejor salvas una vida. No te pones ese mensaje para salvar.
Cuando la cambiaron del centro yo perdí su todo. Perdí todo con ella, no sabía nada de ella. Necesito verla, yo también tengo a mi niña igual. Por favor.
Por amor, puedes hacer...
Si no estoy yo sola, si mi hijo no estoy yo sola.
No es posible, hay que respetarlo.
Puedes darle la oportunidad a ella.
Que no es un tema de oportunidad, no está en mi poder.
¿Cómo te llamas?
Carla Gutiérrez.
Y eres la mejor amiga de
En
Noelia.
el instituto íbamos juntas y éramos mejores amigas.
¿Y perdisteis el contacto?
La cambiaron de centro, se la llevaron y ya perdimos el contacto.
Vale.
Íbamos al Santa Eulalia, al COPE.
¿Y querías verla hoy?
Quería verla y a ver si cambia de opinión y si no, pues poder despedirme.
Y no te han dejado. ¿Qué te han
La
dicho?
policía nos impide pasar.
¿Qué te han dicho?
Es que no nos dejan pasar, y mira que he venido también con mi niña, que también está en silla de ruedas y no...
Pobrecita. Y Carla, sin querer te incomodar más, ¿vienes de muy lejos?
Vengo del hospital de Santa Eulalia.
Y,
Saca antes al colegio de los niños para poder despedirme o verla o a ver si cambia de opinión. Me ha pasado mucho ella, me ha pasado mucho.
no te molesto más. Gracias. Le has dejado una carta, ¿no?
Sí, le dejo una carta, a ver si la puede ver y por lo menos poder hablar con la madre y a ver si podemos entrar de alguna manera, aunque sea yo, y a ver si puedo convencerla.
Yeah, it's not good. It really is. The more I looked into the story, the more it became very clear that the authorities were doing everything in their power to ensure that nobody that really cared about her could actually see her and try to change her mind. That level of hopelessness that they drove this person to, and you know what? Ultimately, it involved everything. Like I said, everything here is a burden for a victim of a horrendous crime. And this is something we know about now. Just imagine everything else governments like this are covering up. Like, even if you think about what happened in the UK, that happened for what, like 20, 30 years without anybody knowing about it. Like, nobody outside these institutions really knew about it, and they were covering up at every level. From the police to judges, everybody was involved in covering it up for one reason and one reason alone, because they wanted they wanted social cohesion, let's call it that, because that's the popular phrase these days in Australia. They wanted to ensure there was no racism, because guess what? It's primarily one group of people who are perpetrating this crime onto hundreds of thousands of innocent victims. That is why they covered it up. Now, you have got to really consider the absolute depravity, the absolute lack of morality behind people who would engage in such a massive cover-up. I do not believe for a second that, you know, they're using excuses like, oh, protecting people from racism or whatever. I do not believe for a second that would override someone's moral sense of there are so many victims here, and we have to rise above any blowback like that which we don't even know would happen, and try to protect the people that really deserve protecting, and go after the people that are the perpetrators of these crimes. That is not what is currently happening in many of these countries. And I guess perhaps the worst part is that it is becoming common. Like, this is becoming a common thing across countries. Today it's the UK, you know, it's actually happened in Australia many years ago. And currently in Australia, there are states that have told judges to reduce sentences for violent criminals who engage in especially these types of crimes if they're foreign, so that they do not get deported. Like, that is where we're at. And you know, it can be Australia, it can be the United States, other parts of Europe. It's happening everywhere. And it's because of an inversion of our priorities. Look, quick note before we move on, please remember to give the video a like and hit subscribe. The channel is entirely fan supported, so if you want to support the work and the mission behind it, consider joining Patreon. That's what keeps the channel alive and gives you early access. It's completely ad-free on longer and uncensored videos, written articles and member-only chats. Now, going back to the story, it seems like the Spanish state had already made preparations as to what happens to her organs after the process of euthanasia. And it appears that might have been a reason why they did not want a lot of people to see her and change her mind. And this is what the lawyer, Noelia's lawyer, seems to be saying. So I'll just quickly play this video and you can see for yourself what's going on.
Estas primeras cautelares, lo que la dicen es, no puedes hacer eso porque ya teníamos todos tus órganos comprometidos. Entonces, lo que nosotros...
¿Quién le dice eso a su madre?
Se lo dicen desde el hospital. Entonces, por supuesto que nosotros defendemos la donación de órganos porque ni el que dona ni el que recibe en ningún momento se lleva dinero. Entonces, a mí la donación de órganos personalmente me parece una buena práctica. Lo que no me parece, bueno, por supuesto, el que dona y el que recibe no lleva dinero, pero todo el intermedio de médicos, facultativos, hospitales que participan, sí que se llevan dinero. Entonces yo, partiendo de que me parece estupendo la donación de órganos, entiendo que al mismo tiempo no debe permitirse por conflicto de intereses que personas que pertenecen a comités pro eutanasia pertenezcan a organismos que regulan el trasplante de órganos. Varias de las personas del comité, además, varias de las personas del comité que avala, este supuesto comité de expertos, entre comillas, que avala la eutanasia de Noelia, pertenecen directa o indirectamente a la Asociación Pro Eutanasia DMD. Entonces, evidentemente que hay muchas irregularidades en este caso.
Look, the story just gets weirder and weirder, doesn't it? It genuinely seems like, and I did see a list. I don't know if there's a comment here with that list. Oh yeah, here we go. So in Spain, apparently she cannot change her mind about the process because this is the amount of money that they would make after organ donation, as in the hospitals would make this sort of money. Yeah, I don't even like it. It really is a case where I'm just struggling for words a little bit because I cannot believe just the level of failure across authorities and the level of evil. Honestly, let's be straight about that. From the top down to the hospitals to the perpetrators, it seems like it's just a massive conspiracy to go through this. And it once again speaks to how far these countries have fallen. I mean, Spain, they recently legalized 500,000 or so migrants who were there illegally, and in the past decade or so, their rate of SA, let's just call it that for YouTube, has gone up something like 300%, and they just keep making it worse, and we know who the usual perpetrators of these crimes are. And the crazy thing is, the governments, they just don't seem to care very much, because that nice little GDP number going up, or corporations finding a little bit more workers to pay even less wages to do the same work the Spanish people could do, and just make society worse for everybody else, and in fact make society unsafe for women, and for women to just live in an overall worse society than they were born into. And that is what these governments are doing. And it genuinely, like, I feel like if things like this continue going on, in the long term, are these countries going to be known for safety for women and upholding women's rights, the equality of both genders? I don't see that lasting very long, especially if a lot of these countries are now starting to accept a parallel society that is essentially Islamic civilization, where women aren't seen as equal. Now we see, I've done videos where I've shown you guys that some of the worst countries to live in today are all Islamic, if you're a woman, that is, and yet we're importing men who uphold those systems in those countries. We're importing them by the millions, and in Europe's case, the tens of millions. They hold certain ideas, they hold certain values, they're not changing that. Essentially, every study, every survey ever done within these groups, they always say that they always prioritize Sharia and Islamic belief over the laws of the land. So yeah, they're not assimilating. That is why parallel societies are forming. That is why no-go zones are forming. That is why in places like Birmingham or parts of Germany or even France, like, you go there and everybody's wearing a niqab, and all these buildings just look run down, like as if an apocalypse had hit them. That That is where this is ultimately going to end up and get worse if the cause is not reversed immediately. And I know in Spain they have Vox, and in the EU they are progressing some deportation laws which would make way for immigration on a massive scale. But and these are really good signs, and I think these right-wing parties are obviously gaining momentum because of issues like that. The most vulnerable in society are no longer protected. It is the perpetrators of crime, the predators, the criminals that are protected. And you can even see, like, this is an example. This example came out because of this story. This has actually happened before in the Netherlands, where the same thing, essentially the exact same story. Instead of punishing the perpetrators, the criminals, they just euthanize the victim. What kind of society is this? And only recently did this story come out where in Germany, a youth center did not report this young girl getting assaulted as well to authorities because guess what? The perpetrators were once again all Muslim. Apparently the authorities said the Muslim boys are already under enough police scrutiny, and this girl was just, this crime was perpetrated multiple times by multiple people, and yet nothing was done because apparently Islamophobia or whatever else that these people come up with these days. And the crazy part about this story is apparently the perpetrators even try to meet up with the victim's sister to carry out even more crimes. These are the type of people that they're bringing into these countries. Now, I actually have a very different opinion to a lot of people in regards to who these countries should be taking. These are youth centers that are taking a lot of young men. And here's the thing about Europe: a lot of these young men aren't actually 16 or 17 or whatever. They're not minors. A lot of them pretend to be minors because it's harder to deport them. They just throw their passports or any form of ID away, whether they're coming on a boat or whatever, just throw them into the ocean. That's what they do so that they can't be identified. And they're just put up in these youth centers. Some are even put up in schools. Like these 20, 30-year-olds go to the same schools in some of these countries where there's like 13 or 14-year-olds. There have been cases exactly like that. So my idea has always been, if you're fleeing an Islamic country, and if you're a man, and if you're a Muslim, I would be very suspicious of what you're fleeing there. What are you fleeing? Like persecuting non-Muslims, persecuting apostates and women? Like, what the hell are you fleeing? I really don't think a lot of these people should be granted asylum. Like, a lot of these people are not genuine refugees. They are just economic refugees, and they just turn out to be predators. And I think they're really taking advantage of a lot of these countries and their welfare systems and their generosity and their empathy, especially, to try and just change the country for the worse. And the crazy part is, a lot of these people are doing this and nothing can even be done about them anymore. Like, authorities, as we can see here, they're just covering up the fact that there are criminals, there are predators that are making society worse. They're covering up the worst crimes you can think of because, as Gad Saad calls it, it's just suicidal empathy. These are the things that are getting normalized. And you can even see here, like, I believe I've actually shared this previously, when it comes to the net costs of these migrants and their convictions for this particular crime, you can see, like, all these countries. What's the commonality amongst them? And this is from Denmark. Look, you can see where the Danish people land here. They're all from Islamic countries that view women as less than, where women do not have equal status in these countries. And in a lot of these countries, I've actually recently learned, they don't even have a word in their language for this particular crime. That's the type of place that these people are coming from. And in a place like Denmark, where it's just a few million people, it's not even 10 million people in total, taking in these people in what used to be a high trust, safe society for women, it's just going to fundamentally change those countries for the worse over a long period of time. Actually, let me correct myself there. It's not happening over a long period of time, is it? It's just happening almost instantly, it seems, these days. With Denmark, at least, they're publishing these numbers. They're quite transparent about it. They stand out as one of the few countries in the West who are bold enough to actually publish this. And I actually made a video as to why this keeps happening. And Denmark's probably one of the few, once again, European countries who've actually done a lot of reversals with their migration policy with the left-wing government in power. That's how you know how bad things really are. And as I always say, you know what, this religion, the people who practice it, the countries they come from, let's just stop pretending that these are all equal to what exists in a lot of Western countries, what exists, not even just Western countries, in a lot of other countries that do not have this particular religion as the majority. This is not normal, and it should not be normalized, and it should not be accepted as the status quo at all. Like the story we started with, that is just pure evil. Like only 100 years ago, people perpetrating those crimes were getting hung. And yet this is where we've come to now. Like these countries are now solidly on the side of criminals over the victims. And that really speaks to where we are at and the type of work we have yet to do. Look guys, that's all I have for today. If you enjoyed the video and the channel more broadly, please give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment your thoughts down below. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
In the neon haze of a broken dawn, steel towers hum, but the wild runs on. A shadow moves through the circus below, half machine, half beast, with a violet glow. They thought the outback was lost to the flame, but a jingle